So I want to keep talking about awareness. If you haven't been following along with us, these are all on YouTube. So I'm going to jump right into awareness. But if it feels like I'm referencing things that you're not totally catching, that's okay. You'll still get something out of today. But you can go back and look at the YouTube videos and sort of see the different ways we've been talking about it. But I want to encourage us to, once we get some settling in our meditation practice where we can feel concentrated and still with a little bit of peacefulness, to start moving outward and zooming out, to be doing our practice from a wider perspective, to just put that simply. So we've been doing a practice where we breathe in and we breathe out and we focus on the breath. Say we're focusing on the breath in the belly. We breathe in, we breathe out, and then we would, in between the two breaths, sort of zoom out and feel the whole body. That's just a preliminary practice to start to get you into the attentional headspace where you don't have to narrow in on the object of concentration. And ultimately, what we're trying to do is ultimately be able to do this practice from awareness. We do it from awareness, we automatically fall into acceptance. Awareness, which is here right now, is already accepting of every part of your sensory experience. It's not resisting it. Any resistance you feel is something inside of awareness, is some sensory experience inside of awareness. Either some tension in the body or an emotion in the body or some thoughts, sounds or pictures. But awareness itself is already in acceptance. So when we practice acceptance in our mindfulness, we're actually practicing trying to get closer to awareness. Once we can tune into awareness, the acceptance starts to come for free, and the practice really changes character. I want to keep exploring this koan of the seamless tomb, which we were working on a couple of weeks ago. Maybe it was last week, I can't remember. This emperor who wanted, I don't remember the story really well, the emperor who wanted someone to build him a seamless tomb. A seamless tomb is one without any parts, right? It's all one piece. So I want to keep exploring that idea that awareness is a kind of seamless tomb. Don't worry about the death part of tomb. Think of the container part of tomb. Right? Well, we can get to the death part in another week. But the container part of tomb, in order to put something inside of something seamless, it has to already be inside of it, right? We're not looking for an actual physics solution here, right? The idea is that the thing has no parts, so it has no way of being separated. So if you want to be put in a seamless tomb, the only way that can possibly happen is if you're already in it. So it's seamless, it's one thing, there are no parts, and you're already inside of it. So when I ask you, build me a seamless tomb, it has to be something I'm already inside of. I'm already contained in. This is another aspect of awareness which is captured by this koan. We are already contained in awareness. Or everything we think of ourselves is already contained in awareness. It's already there. We're already inside of it. Everything in the world is already contained inside of it. There's nowhere we could run where we could get outside of it. There's nothing you can see that's outside of it. So let's actually take this note. So you look at your screen, and I want you to notice how the mind imagines there's all this space around the screen, right? It's sort of like there's air above and off to the left and off to the right and above the keyboard or whatever you're looking at on a phone. But if you actually look at your visual field, notice that there are no gaps in your visual field. The second you get off of your screen, there's something there. We call it in the background, but it's actually visually, right? If you were to paint this, there would be no gaps. There would be visual experience in every square inch around your screen. This is true of any object you look at. The visual experience doesn't end. There is a seamlessness of visual experience. Does this make sense? What we like to do is say, well, here's an object, so there's space around it. It's separate from the other objects. But objects are things we pick out of our visual field and create with an idea. But our actual visual field is a seamless spread of color and light and dark. This is also true of our auditory world. There's not a part of our auditory world that we can't hear. Again, it could be quiet. Another way of putting this is when you're looking with your visual field, how big is your visual field? So intellectually, you might go, well, it's the size of a room, or what you're doing there is you're remembering how big a room is and how big you are, but that's not what I'm actually asking. I'm asking, if you look at your visual field and that's all you have is your visual field, how big is the visual field? Well, here's a way of putting it. There's no way to compare your visual field against any other visual field. In this moment, everything is in the visual field, and that will be true always. I'm not asking how big the world is. I'm asking how big your visual experience is. You can notice this more clearly when you close your eyes. How big is the blank behind your eyes? How big is it? Well, you have a story that it's like maybe the size of your face, but that's not what it is, right? In experience, we're talking about first-person experience here, not any science, not any memory of how things are supposed to be. Any boundary you put on your closed eyes visual experience is a visual experience that you're adding to your visual experience, that's sort of part of your visual field. The same thing, by the way, is true of your auditory field. The same way is true of your physical feeling field. There's just one field of sensory experience. And we put them all together, and then we have one field of awareness experience, of awareness. No part is separate. No part is carved out by awareness. It's one smooth field of experience. It's a seamless tune. And everything is inside of it. Everything you see, everything you feel, everything you think, the back of your body, the front of your body, inside your body, something you hear 4 miles away. So it's totally okay to pick out some, have your mind or your attention pick out some part and go, hey, there's a bird sound, or there's a dictionary, or there's some heartburn in my chest. But that mind carving out that piece is also part of awareness. It's also part of the seamless movie experience of awareness. That mind that goes, I am picking out, there is a bird. That's a sound in the head saying there is a bird. A picture of a bird arises in the mind. The sound of the bird out there is arising. It's all seamless, part of the whole awareness. So even attention is part of this seamless experience. So when we decide to do meditation and we focus in on our breath, at first we're carving out a part of our experience to really focus in on. But we can start to learn that we can do that carving out while not losing touch with the field of awareness, the seamless spread of awareness. Okay, so we've talked about that before, and we're just sort of, I'm trying to push on in different ways. This may feel uncomfortable. It may not, it's okay if it doesn't trigger anything. And it's okay if you get a glimpse of it and doesn't feel amazing, or that doesn't matter. We're just trying to explore what it's like to be a human being, what our first person experience is actually like before we tell stories about it. And this will become useful. Just have to trust me a little on that. Some of you already have tasted this. So the next piece of this, that is ultimately the most powerful part of it, is that we are the seamless tune, right? We are that which all of it is happening inside of. So build me a seamless tomb, the emperor asks. And the answer is, you're already a seamless tomb. Everything is contained within you, and you are one thing. So let's practice this a little bit. We can actually use our screen here. I don't know what people on Facebook can do. You can open your webcam or look at your camera on your phone or grab a mirror, but you can just sort of look at your face on the screen. And just notice any judgments that arise about your face. Notice the expression on your face. Notice colors and shape and dark. So we're just becoming awake to a certain part of our experience. Now, our mind naturally identifies with this image. Now, we're using the webcam, so you probably aren't staring right into your eyes. That's okay. That's not really important. So let's first explore some of the things we've already talked about, and then we'll push it a little further. So we're looking at the face, but notice that the face is just part of a painting, right? We're we carve it out because it's so important to us. We carve it out from everything around it. But if you just look, it's just part of a visual field. It's a flat screen, right? So, on the, there's my face, and then there's a pale lamp, and then there's some red light, and then there's some books over here, but they're all just colors. There's just the idea that the face is separate is just an idea. Visually speaking, it's all part of one field of visual experience. And notice as you go back, you can lean back a little bit and notice your face gets smaller. And you can lean forward and your face gets bigger. That may seem obvious, but notice that your face is getting smaller, but are you getting smaller? You're not getting smaller, right? Your face is getting smaller. Your visual image of yourself is getting smaller. Your face is getting bigger. This is just like what it would look like, and actually is what is happening right now, if someone were to look at you closely and someone were to look at you from a little further away. Okay, but notice again, as you're getting smaller, are you getting smaller? Is your first person experience of you getting smaller? You're having a subjective experience of an image getting smaller, but are you, the first person experiencer, getting smaller? No, you don't change at all. Okay, so this image of your face can change, but you don't change. I know this sounds simplistic, but it's actually pretty profound ultimately. Because when we close our eyes, we go, who am I? One answer might be some image of you appears, right? Now the question is, how far away are you from that image? Is it a small image of you? Is it a big image of you? Where are you sitting to look at that image of yourself? It's a kind of mirror, right? Our internal image of ourselves. Notice that it might get smaller or it might get bigger. In fact, it's probably a lot, if you actually pay attention to it, it's a lot less stable than the image on the screen. So as this image of yourself is changing in your head, are you changing? Is your first person experience of the image is changing, but the first person experiencer, the one that is aware of the image of yourself, is not changing. And you can do this. Imagine standing across the room from yourself with your eyes closed, and just see what image you get. Imagine looking at yourself from the ceiling and see what image you get. Imagine your face is really sad. See what image you get. Imagine your face really happy. Now, this interior model you have of yourself is no different ultimately than this visual model we have on the Zoom screen. It's usually a little bit more, it's a little harder to let go of, and it's got multiple senses going on, right? So you're feeling your body and your face as you're seeing your face. But ultimately, as that image of yourself changes, awareness doesn't change. The thing that is aware of this interior image doesn't change. And this is you. This is the real you, right? This is the ultimate source of you, this subjective first person experience. And this first person experience doesn't have a face. which brings up another koan now, just one of the famous ones, which, what was your original face before your parents were born? So anything we identify with is going to be in the sensory experience, in the sensory field. The sensory experiences are going to change and fluctuate, all of them. So anything we identify is going to change and fluctuate. In fact, it's going to appear and disappear. Any sensory experience is going to appear and disappear. And yet we remain. The field of awareness remains. The field of awareness is unchanged ultimately by any particular sensory experience appearing and disappearing. Because the original face that you had before your mother and father were born, I mean, yes, is some form of emptiness. But again, the Western, that term is a little darker than it really, it's a form of unconditionedness, right? It's not controlled by or determined by what's happening in experience. It doesn't resist anything that happens in experience, but it is also unaffected in some important way by what happens in experience. And this is why we can say it's completely accepting. There's a practice where you can sort of point at your face. Just point at it on the screen. Look at your finger. You point down the finger and you see your face. You're pointing out there. That's a visual experience out there in the world, right? And you point back. Now we're pointing back at the thing that's seeing the face. You look at that finger and then follow it back to the thing that sees the face. What does that thing look like? Well, it's right here, right now, right? It's here, right this second. The thing that sees the face is here because it's seeing the finger. You could also do the thing that sees the finger is here right now. In your experience, it's here. What is it made of? It's not made of anything. It's the thing that all things arise within. That's who you are. These are all some visual exercises, which all just come back to the same kind of question. Who is hearing this? Who is thinking this? Who is the feeler of this? Who am I? You don't have to struggle. It's always here. And it's not only is it always here, it's seamless with all experience. It's present with any experience you're having. So, there is a stage where you awaken to this feeling like, oh, I'm the space and then everything else. And that's fine if that's a stage It's a great stage to go through. But the next stage of that is realizing that the awareness is seamless with everything that's happening inside of it. That you can't find a boundary between awareness and the objects of awareness. Wherever there's an experience, awareness is there. You are there. So let's finish up talking about that, because let's just real quickly end up on that. How do we normally think of it? We think, okay, I'm having an experience of this computer screen. That I'm thinking that computer screen is over there and I am over here. How is that actually represented in experience? Well, what happens is we generate a picture of ourselves as this body. Normal everyday sense, and with eyes and everything. And then we have a picture of this computer, and we have a picture of a gap between those two things. Great, that's normal. But if you actually pay attention to that experience, the computer, the gap, the face, your whole body is all equally in awareness, right? There's no part of that which goes, this is where awareness is. That's only an idea. Awareness is equally in the computer as it is in your body. Equally in the computer as it is in your picture of your face. Equally in the face on the computer as it is in the picture of your face in your head. Awareness doesn't pick and choose between those things. Awareness is everywhere that experiences. And no part of that experience is more you than any other part. Okay. So again, we're working with a kind of a Zen koan here, and I'm pointing at some stuff. Last week we made it I tried to make it very everyday cognitive science, and you can just see the distinction between attention and awareness. So if today was a little too puzzling, go back and watch last week's video, because it's not that out there. But there is a part of our brain that needs to be broken a little bit, that needs to be unwound or dissolved for us to see the truth of this. And it's just our habitual separation of ourselves from the world, our habitual thingness, that we say, I'm a thing, right? And we want to put ourselves in the world just like this camera is a thing, and that book is a thing, and I'm a thing. That's a very strong habit of mind and a habit of attention. And so it's so strong that it can be hard to see around sometimes. But it's a fairly obvious fact, once you really look, that that's not how experience arises for any of us in any given moment, if we pay close attention. That's our story of experience. But experience itself arises as a whole, unbounded, seamless self with a capital S, like subjectiveness. Okay, think on that for a bit. Send me questions if you have them, and we'll talk at the end of class.